Hi, AGP students. Welcome to lesson number 7 of the Leadership Development course. Today we're discussing group dynamics and the fundamentals, where we're trying to better understand how we can kind of operate as a leader and understanding the individuals within a group and how they kind of makes up a group and such. But before we get into that, what I'd really like to do is just kind of recap up to this point in the class so far. So the point of this class is really just to kind of go through and increase what I like to call is your sphere of influence and such. So the first few lessons were kind of helping you to learn about oneself, what things you like to do academically, extracurricular, and then also your strengths. And then secondly, the second portion of it was managing and maxing yourself. So learning how to kind of take control and be more control of your experience and help it to influence those extracurriculars, activities, and your strengths and such. So now we're moving into the second latter half, and today is more about understanding the individuals within a group and helping you to learn about the talent of others. And I think that's what's the beauty of strengths and such, is it really does give you an opportunity to kind of utilize those individual strengths and your strengths and kind of helping them to couple them together in an environment where you can extremely do well together as a group. So kind of going through today's lessons, we'll learn about group dynamics, causes of poor group dynamics, strategies to improve group dynamics, then positive characteristics, negative characteristics, and also team formation and such, and how those individual groups can come together. All right, let's look at this. And you may be asking yourself, what are group dynamics? And what those are the attitudes and behaviors of a social group, either by choice or by incidental. So what that means is that you might be a formal team, a formal class, a formal group that's been put together to work on a project or assignment, or it may come about incidental in the fact that maybe you're just a group of individuals who have came together and through no formal organization or anything and have formulated a group and such. And then there's two different types of groups in which you can think about. There's an intragroup and an intergroup. And with an intergroup, it's just two or more individuals grouped by common interest. And then an intergroup is different groups that share a common interest. So that may not make a whole lot of sense, but here's a way of me trying to help you to better understand that. So hopefully all of you know about Harry Potter. Probably some may know a lot more than others and such. I'll tell you, to be honest, my knowledge of Harry Potter is very limited. I've only seen the first movie, so you can kind of criticize me all you want and such. Sorry, I just did not get into it as well as some people did. But anyways, I thought this was an excellent example, especially for you all, especially to be able to identify with. Now, within Hogwarts, as you can see, there's the 4 different houses. You have Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw. And if we were looking at this, an intragroup would be the dynamics and behaviors, say, within Ravenclaw. They have their own activities and norms and customs within it and everything, and the personalities and such that you try to understand as a group and as a leader try to run that effectively. Well, and then if you look at Ravenclaw and Slytherin, then the two of those are different. And if you happen to be someone who was over the both of those houses or something with that, then you would be looking at the dynamics within the two groups and how to make those two group works. So that would be intergroup and such. And you can kind of think of it in that fashion. So other examples might be, say, Bryan versus College Station, Texas versus Texas A&M and such. Individually within their own silos and such, they're to be treated differently, but when they're coming together and such for the intergroup dynamics, they're to be looked at and treated treated differently by bringing the two together and not handled in the same manner. So hopefully that does well to explain that little concept there. Well, you may be asking yourself, what are the things that cause poor group dynamics and how can we sort of better identify that within our groups? And you may have seen examples of this in groups you've already worked with and you may have not understood, oh, that's what it really is. I know for me, I've certainly seen all these at one point or another, and as a leader and such, it's really good for you to be able to identify these and know how to work with them and such, or how to address these sort of things. But these can either be from the leader or they can be from individuals within the group. Now, one of the ones is weak leadership, and exactly what you think of, and that can be when a team lacks a strong leader, a more dominant member of the group can often take charge. And this can lead to a lack of direction, some infighting, or focusing on the wrong sort of priorities in which you need to be working on. Excessive deference to authority. This is really just a big word for AKA brown nosing and such. And that's just happened when everyone's seen to agree with the leader and things, and the leader can do no wrong in that. Not so good, because you really want to have some disagreement within the group, some good conflict, because that helps to breed, one to be critical of the ideas and to kind of explore alternatives and options, and helps you to really flush some of that out. Now, blocking all these different sort of behaviors that are listed below, and this is, merely just trying to disrupt the flow of information within a group. So the aggressor, the person who often disagrees with others, is inappropriately outspoken. Obviously it is good to to disagree, but this is someone who's a little bit more forthcoming and a little more domineering in that sense. The negator is the member who is often critical of others' ideas, and as I said, it's good to be critical of ideas, but it's not so good if you're the person who's always being the negative individual and not contributing anything positive to the discussion, it seems like. The withdrawer, this is someone who, just as it says, withdraws from the group, doesn't really participate in discussion. They're not really adding or contributing to the group. The recognition seeker, this person is sometimes often boastful or dominates the session. Someone who is trying to assume the position of the leader and things when it's not really their position or place to do so, unless it's been kind of conceded by the group in some fashion. And then the joker, the person who's always introducing humor at the most inappropriate time. So that sort of thing can really derail a group and the progress and such. Sometimes within groups, you've only got maybe 30 minutes to get together and to meet, and and the object is you want to get in, get out, get things discussed, and be productive, and that you're moving through action items, and that those previous action items are being done, and along with that, you're creating new action items to move forward with. So the other three, groupthink, that can be when a desire for consensus above the desire to reach the right decision, and this can happen when when you're thinking, oh well, what, really the group has kind of gotten bored out of it and not really challenged themselves anymore and things, and they decide to do this. Or it happens when everyone is sort of too much on the same page, and because of that, there's really no breeding of new ideas. And sometimes it's good to have outside individuals to be introduced in those sort of things when things become stagnant, and they bring a kind of fresh new perspective. The social loafers are sometimes called free riders. They're members who just take it easy, kind of leave the colleagues to do all the work, and then try to claim some in some way. So there's some resentment on that fact from others who are, in their perspective of them, they're not really doing their part to contribute. And then evaluation and apprehension, that happens when people feel that they are judged excessively harsh by the other group members, and they hold back their opinions as a result. So if someone is contributing, and it feels like every time they're contributing it's getting shot down and things, well, that does a lot to really sort of stunt their ability to contribute, because they feel like, oh, well, no one likes my ideas, or they think they're all bad or something. All right, well, let's see how we can go about improving the team dynamics and things. And some of this we've kind of already discussed in some ways in the past couple of lessons, but this is to kind of break it down a little bit more for you, and probably give you some ideas about when you're either approaching new leadership positions or you have issues and problems within the group, how to kind of go about them. First off is to kind of know your team, and that's what I think, with strengths and and how we'll begin looking at it further and understanding the other team members, that you will have a really good idea of, oh, this person's good at this, this person's good with this, and how to couple them together and pair them up with other individuals where you believe that they will have a good amount of success in doing so. You want to tackle the problems quickly. Obviously, you don't want it to let it to fester and to get worse, and then to kind of begin to infect the group and maybe their behavior and their attitudes towards things. So if you see something that's going on, try to quickly challenge it and do your best to kind of eliminate that issue as quickly as possible. Define roles and responsibilities, and that other people know what person A is doing, person B is doing, and give them the sort of expectations up front. Once again, strengths is beautiful for this. Making sure that you're putting people in position that really aligns well with their individual strengths, and that they can tackle the problems much more effectively. And then lastly but breaking down barriers. Seeing if there's some walls put up or some personalities and things that aren't necessarily jiving or meshing well together. It's like, how do you go about doing that? How do you kind of create a group that has really positive sort of feelings towards one another, and and the personalities within the group aren't necessarily being a barrier to that. Also, communication. Make sure that you're communicating clearly to the groups. Make sure you're doing it through certain forums, whether that's email, meetings, maybe you're sharing documents, maybe it's group text or something, whatever it may be, but trying to make sure that the team members are in on the communication and that they clearly are understanding as to what's going on in a way. Because sometimes if not, then one group may get off task or may not be doing something in which maybe the goals, the assignments change, and one group doesn't know, and then they end up wasting time, and that could be very irritating and frustrating to those. And then lastly, as a leader, is just pay attention. Try to, when you're not actually leading or talking or instructing, or and if you have some downtime of things, and observe the members within your group and see and watch what's going on. Who's talking to who's not talking to who, for nonverbal and verbal clues and such, and try to really see what's happening within those groups. All right, let's see what else we got here. So here we got positive group dynamics, and these are some of the things that you can tell when the group is humming along and that they're doing quite well with one another. First one is they just trust one another. They trust to get things done. They trust that if they need help, that there's someone there to help and support them. They just feel everyone feels good within the group and is very happy to be a part of it and working with one another. You're all working towards a common goal. You don't have someone in another area that's trying to do their own thing on a tangent and doesn't necessarily agree to the full extent of what you're working towards, and you're just like, well, I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to kind of make sure that my sort of things are taken care of and things of that nature. Accountability in the fact that people are getting things done when they say they're going to do these things, and then accountability in the fact that you are able to, or others are able to kind of approach the individuals and kind of follow up and call them out in some ways if things are not being done, and because of that. And then lastly, the progress and creativity is very high, that you see that things are getting done, action items are being completed, new action items are being created, and that the creativity within the group is very high, that things are always being introduced, new ideas are being worked on, things are being retooled, refined, and getting better and better and better and such. Sometimes you see within groups, they're like, oh, this is the way we did it the year before and last year, and they just keep doing everything the same thing over and over and over again, and they're not really working to improve upon that process or that event or activity or anything. They're just kind of stagnant. So what are some negative characteristics? Some things that you may have seen, some things you may have not have seen, but these are some things to kind of watch out for if the group is not doing as well as you would think it should be doing. Maybe some disruption to group productivity. Things are not getting accomplished. Some stunting of creativity and ideation process, so you feel like things are not moving along. The ideas and such are not flowing. Things are not necessarily being refined as well as they have or whatnot. And then there may be too much conflict or too much agreement. So each one of the polar opposites is very, very bad in a way. You want conflict and you want an agreement, but you don't want too much agreement because then you're just, agreeing to move along and things. And if you don't want too much conflict because then there's too much debating and that's really preventing you from moving forward. And then lack of options or sufficient alternatives. So you don't want to be one of those groups like where you're down to the wire and saying, oh, this is all the time we have, this is all the money we have, this is what we have to do. And because of that, that's just poor planning on the group's part, where you feel like you're boxed in and you have to only do this sort of option, which then probably leads to a lack of quality that you may have with the event or product or whatever it is that you're trying to produce. Okay, well, from here, I want to talk about the stages of team formation, and this is something that each and every individual goes through constantly in a way, whether you're joining a new classroom or a new team, maybe you go to a new camp, or new friends and such, and whatever. It really can mean a lot of different things, but every group kind of goes through this. And the thing to remember about this groups, these phases, I guess, or stages they like to call them, is that it's not something that you go through and that you move through the stage and you never return back. You can kind of go through one stage and move forward, then you can kind of fall back and such, and it's a constant movement here. Okay, now forming is the first stage, and it's when most team members come together and are positive and polite. Some may be anxious as they haven't fully understand what work or team they will be with, or others are simply excited about the task ahead. So think of that as, everyone's coming together, kind of feeling everyone out, and they're being very nice and cordial to everyone. The storming stage is where people start to push against the boundaries established in the forming stage. And if a team is going to fail, usually it's in this storming stage right here and such. But that's where conflict starts to come between team members and natural working styles. People may work in different ways of all sorts of reasons, but it differs because working styles can be unforeseen, and they may become frustrated with this and something, the members of the group. The norming stage is when people start to resolve their differences and appreciate the colleague's strengths and respect the authority of the leader. And the performing phase is when the team reaches this stage when hard work without friction, and they start to achieve the goals of the team. Also, the structures and processes that have been created really work well with the group and such. And then lastly, the adjourning. So this is where the conclusion of the team takes place. No longer meeting or something of that nature, or the project or task has been done, or the season's come to an end or something, whatever it may be. That's when things end for the group. Now, as I mentioned, you may be going through forming and then storming and then norming, and then some dynamics change within the group, and then you have to go back down to storming or something or whatnot. Or maybe you're humming along and you finally get to performing, and again some dynamics change within the group, and then you go back to norming. So as I mentioned, you may move through these stages and move all the way through. The idea is that you want to be in the performing stage, and that takes a lot of hard work, and it's just something that doesn't naturally come as a group and a leaders and such, and you have to work to keep the group in this performing stage, rather than instead of falling back and such. Well, I have a little video I think that does really well to explain this and such. I do apologize for the quality a little bit, but it's a tremendous video that really does well to demonstrate these different stages. Y'all may recognize this as a Remember of the Titans. This is the forming stage.
Listen up, I don't care if you're black, green, blue, white, or orange. I want all of my defensive players on this side, all players going out for offense over here, right now. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. You and you, offensive bus, sit together. You and you, defensive bus, sit together. Get comfortable too, because the person that I have to sit next to is the same one that you'll be rooming with for the duration of this camp.
Alright, now we're going into the storming stage.
I'm Gary. You're Julius. Let's get some particulars and just get this over with, alright? Particulars? Yeah. No matter what I tell you, you ain't gonna never know nothing about me. Hey, listen. I ain't running any more of these 3 days, okay? What I got to say you really don't want to hear, because honesty ain't too high for your priority list, right? Honesty? You want honesty? Alright, honestly, I think you're nothing. Nothing but a pure waste of God-given talent. You don't listen to nobody, man. Not even Doc or Boone. Shiver push on the line every time, man. You blow right past them. Push them, pull them, do something. You can't run over everybody in this league. And every time you do, you can leave one of your teammates hanging out to dry. Me in particular. No.
Alright, now we're going into the norming stage.
You really stuck him, Campbell. Yeah, I love me a little contact, Petey. Left side. Wrong side. Left side. Left side. Left side. Left side.
Okay, now we're moving into the performing stage. And lastly, the adjourning stage.
Gary is gone, but his spirit lives on. People say that it can't work, black and white. Here we make it work every day. We have our disagreements, of course. But before we reach for hate, always, always, we remember the Titans.
Okay, and like I said, I think that video does really well to kind of illustrate the different stages. And something to keep in mind is you to be conscious of this and try to watch for how people in the groups that you're a part of, especially with each beginning new school year, new classes, new teams, how do you kind of what sort of characteristics do you recognize within those stages, and where is that group at? And something when you're a leader, kind of understanding that and how you can kind of intentionally walk the group through those sort of stages, and kind of working to manage any sort of risk or disagreements and things and conflict that's not productive. Alright, well, as you know, I always like to end every session with a quote, one that I feel that is relevant and just something to kind of help you. But here's one from Henry Ford, in which he talks about, and if you're not sure what Henry Ford is, he's the one that developed the Ford Motor Company and the vehicles in which you see on the roads and such. But coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. And I think that does really well to sort of illustrate coming together is just the beginning, and that's easy in a sense. And being able to keep the individuals and the group together is progress, but working together is success. And that's what the hard part is really, having them come together and be productive, and that you're doing some things that you're setting out to accomplish, and you're consistently doing that and the work that's needed to do that time and time and time again. And as a leader, that is difficult, but at the same time it's very rewarding. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Can't wait to get into the classroom and kind of putting you together and begin working on and examining some of these a bit more further in depth with our activities. But thanks again. Have a good day.